Orgasmic enlightenment, where the sexual and spiritual come together. I'm Kim Anami, and I'm a holistic sex and relationship coach and a vaginal weightlifter. In this show, we explore all things intimate. I believe that our sexual energy is life force, creative energy, and we can use it to shape our worlds, strengthen our relationships, and self-actualize. I blend the most avant-garde information from neuroscience, ancient sexual practices like Tantra and Taoism, to renegade wellness modalities to show you how to create gourmet sex in your lives. Come one, come all. Meditate, masturbate, create. AKA, I don't do coffee, I do orgasms. My coffee breaks never consist of coffee. They consist of fingers, cocks, and dildos, and my jade eggs sometimes. Anything I can get near or in my vagina. That is the power bank, the fuel, the energy source. The only place I'd ever put coffee is up my ass so I can shit it out again. You get all the inspiration and energy you need from your ultimate life force source, your genitals. So why isn't everyone getting high off of sex? Why are most people jerking off and passing out, or busting out a 2-minute pump and dump and then slump? It's how they are having sex or self-pleasuring. One way of doing it gives you energy, and the other takes it away. Not only does having sex, solo or partnered, in the way that gives you energy feel even more blissful and ecstatic, but it enables you to have access to all of the procreative power that is the true essence of sexual energy. Apart from this bliss and ecstasy, my favorite thing about sex is how it changes my life, how it blows it to fucking smithereens via the obliteration power of the deep and holy fuck, where you die and are reborn. You tap into the procreative power of the universe and use it to build your worlds and yourself. You metamorphose into the highest, best versions of who you really are. That is what I really get off on. The key difference between busting out orgasms or genital sneezes versus transcendent, psychedelic, life-changing, rebirthing experiences is your level of conscious awareness. Using sex to wake up or using sex to put you to sleep. Most people, through absorbing their cultural conditioning around all things sexual, are operating on unconscious paradigms. The beliefs of their parents, television, film, religious programming they've taken in since childhood, all of this stuff shapes how they see and experience sex. In Anami land, we are all about the up-leveling, to help you use sex in the way that it was intended as a procreative power source and to be vibrating in ecstasy for most of your waking existence. To get there, we need to rewire destructive and energy draining patterns. Most people have been orgasming the same way since they started doing sex. For some people, especially men people, they have conditioned themselves to jerk off as fast as possible so that no one busts in on their teenage boy selves. Or they hurry to the finish line because they are with a woman who has been convinced she's just not that sexual and is having sex just to get it over with. Women may have bought into the notion that their vaginas are useless and their clitoral orgasms are all they can hope for, so they furiously rub themselves into a paltry wisp of an orgasm and call it a day. For most people, the idea is to climax as fast as possible by whatever means possible: porn, fantasy, vibrators, unconscious body slapping, and then to pass out. Mission accomplished. When I start talking to people about sex being able to heal and change their lives and to rebirth themselves and self-actualize them, to take them to higher states of consciousness and give them the most bliss they've ever had in their lives that can last for days and have them feel like they finally belong in this ecstatic and divine body of theirs, they're like, say what? And other times they're like, sign me up. So given that they have the willingness and the openness to envision that sex could be something more, that it could be the be all and end all, they need reprogramming. A great way to start realizing what you don't know is listening to my podcast and watching YouTube videos. From what I hear from a lot of you, that you binge on those, and that is fantastic. That is one of the best ways to start knowing what it is that you don't know, right? We don't know what we don't know. Now you can find out what you don't know. So when you are ready to jump into practice, this is how you rewire yourself to get high and tap your creative genius during sex. Ta-da! Meditate, masturbate, create. I came up with this sequence during the last big breakup I had. I was struggling to process my emotions. It wasn't a conscious uncoupling. It was a very unresolved finish. So I knew, and I did what I knew would deliver me, my vagina. I did what I always tell other people to do: go fuck yourself. So I went and fucked myself a lot. And I decided to up-level the going and fucking by meditating first. And thus MMC, or Meditate, Masturbate, Create, was born. Step 1, meditate. I already have a daily meditation practice I have been a devotee of for the past 30 years. So MMC is something I do in addition to that. The meditation practice I use involves a mantra. It's the word HU. HU, H-U, is an ancient name for God, spirit, energy, the universe, whatever you want to call it. It's chanted in a long, drawn-out voice in any tone you wish, and you can change the tones as you chant it, like this. I suggest sitting up to chant rather than lying down, which might lead you to fall asleep. Place your attention at your third eye, the spot between your eyebrows, about 1 inch inside your forehead. Lightly gaze there as though you are watching a television screen. And you can take a few deep breaths to get started and ground into your body, and then begin to chant. Go for anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes. If you already have another meditation practice, 5 minutes ought to be enough to ground you and up-level your state of awareness. If you've had a long day and you're feeling mentally distracted and unfocused, or if you don't have a regular meditation practice, then the longer the better, and I would say up to 20 minutes. The sound HU has a multitude of uses. It's healing, uplifting, heart-opening, and it elevates your state of consciousness higher. Singing it before sex, whether solo or partnered, is a beautiful thing that you can do together if you're with a couple before your sex dates. And if you're on your own, it's this whole point of up-leveling. So I've talked about these patterns and the programming around sex. So by chanting the HU, you are rising up above the things that you might have taken in, your looping patterns, your imprinting, and busting through that. Plus, it brings you into your body, into the present moment, and yes, breaking these patterns that you might have been indulging in for years, decades even, without realizing that there exists a hotter, sexier, more energizing, ecstatic, and life-changing way of having sex. The HU also acts as protection. I spoke in my last podcast episode, How Casual is Casual Sex, about the energetic portals that are opened during sexual encounters. If you have unwelcome visitors, this is a way to protect yourself from those influences and ensure that they keep their distance. After you chant, you can go the extra mile and set an intention for your self-pleasuring or love-making session. It could be to energize yourself, become more conscious during sex, get to know your body, explore different orgasms, build stamina, and to heal. You can leave this open and general, or you can imagine sending sexual energy to parts of your body that need repair, love, or attention. Even if it's just a body part that you don't like very much, you can send your sexual energy there to enliven it. Step 2, masturbate. Masturbate rhymes with meditate and create, but I actually prefer the term self-pleasuring. Masturbation conjures up visions of secret, furtive, jerking off sessions rather than using self-pleasuring as a loving ritual and its own form of meditation. The purpose here is to consciously self-pleasure so that we can liberate and direct that energy. We want to harvest it. Most people eject all of this high quality, potent energy out of them. But not you. You're going to grab it and paint and create your life with it. That is the big secret to manifestation, mainlining that energy straight from your genitals and out into your life. And you do this through slowing down and breathing. Instead of taking the fastest path to your endpoint, especially if it's a path you've taken many times before, old, reliable, experiment with a new path, or at the very least, stretch out the length of your sessions. The longer you self-pleasure or have sex for, the more energy you cultivate. And you do this in tandem with deep, steady breathing. Most people hold their breath or breathe really shallow during sex. And what this does is it curtails the flow of sexual energy and gets you to orgasm much faster. Instead, breathe deeply throughout your sexual encounters, and especially as you are nearing orgasm, and even all the way through your orgasm if you choose to have one. And that's another good point to mention, is that for this practice of MMC, you don't necessarily need to orgasm to get the benefits. In fact, you may get more benefits by not orgasming. For most people, going over the edge of orgasm is going to be depleting to some degree. You can experiment with building your energy up, breathing, and then having an orgasm or not having one. You can build the energy up just before its peak. You can breathe and breathe and breathe, and then go and do something else. And that is the create part of the equation, which we will get to in a moment. But I suggest at the very least that you edge. And edging is when you build up to the cusp of orgasm, so you're nearly there, but not yet over, and you pause. Breathe a few rounds of long, steady, deep breaths all the way down into your belly and into your pelvis. And do this at least 3 times, which I mean full inhales and 3 full exhales. And let yourself subside and then build up to your edge again. Pause, breathe, and repeat this at least a few times. The sweet spot where you harness the most energy is as close to orgasm as you can possibly get without actually having one. If you're having vaginal orgasms, you can have as many as you like. Just make sure that you breathe up and through them. But for the typical penile or clitoral orgasm, these tend to be energy drainers. And so people can get to a place of breathing really, 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 really deeply and throughout and have a much less sense of losing energy afterward, but that comes typically with a lot of practice. There's the odd person I've met over the years who claim that they don't ever lose energy through orgasms, but most people do. So I was on a plane when I was writing this, and I would go to the bathroom and finger fuck myself wildly and squirt all over the bathroom for a few minutes, and then I would come back to my seat and keep writing. Hence, this is this whole concept of I don't do coffee, I do orgasms, and it works like a charm. Step 3 is create. Freud and Jung talked about libido as being our life force energy, how we express and individuate in the world. And there's also a concept they spoke to called thanatos, which is the death instinct. And I would argue that with every unconscious sex act, every useless ejaculation or orgasm, we are imprinting upon ourselves a kind of devaluation, a destruction. In Freudian theory, thanatos is the opposite of eros. Interesting, yes? And some of the most perversions that I think have happened in religious texts are around sex. The idea of some kind of moral condemnation is inaccurate. What I think's happened instead is that over the years, as a control mechanism, the truth and the techniques about sexual energy were clearly outlined. But these texts and teachings were then diluted, altered, and misshapen to create this whole narrative of fear and shame around all things sexuality. The insanity of this is that people are terrified or simply have no idea of the power of their own bodies. So the whole point is that your sexual energy wasn't designed for just baby making, though that is one of its highest purposes. So you've gathered up all of this sexual chi, you've been breathing and recirculating it throughout your body. Now go do something. Get the fuck out there and get some shit done. You can do any of the classically creative things like draw or paint or write. I love writing. It is one of my main creative outlets in addition to sex itself and surfing. And speaking of surfing, this counts as a creative activity. Any kind of working out or exercise does. Gardening, building something in your yard, playing with your children, even cleaning your house. All of these things count as creative exercises. The important thing is that right after your self-pleasuring and breathing session, you go and channel that energy. You don't have to consciously think about channeling it. All you need to do is get your ass in gear. What you are doing is training your body and your psyche to know that this is what we do with our life force energy. We create, we build, we manifest our visions in the world. We don't dump them into some scrunched up tissue and flush it down the toilet. We honor our life force and we use it. We don't desecrate it, even though those are the main messages we are constantly bombarded with, encouraging people to desecrate their sexual energy. Do you know what desecrate means? Desecrate, to ignore the sacredness of, to treat a sacred thing with violent disrespect. So, treat it as sacred. I speak a lot about how I have created my business, my brand, and my whole life through my vagina. By learning to harness my sexual energy and use it as a creative power source, I have built and manifested the life I want. This power, this skill is the essence of what I teach in all of my salons. Your sexual energy is your superpower. Whether you are singled or coupled, you can tap into it. And whether you are single or coupled, you can use, meditate, masturbate, create. The name of the game is harvesting and channeling that energy. The side bonus is that the more you build your sexual energy, the higher you reach in bliss and ecstasy to the point where these become your default states. No plant medicine necessary, just the power that lies at your own fingertips. Thank you so much for listening. If you haven't already, subscribe and also leave a review. And send someone else the gift of a healthy libido and an off-the-charts love life by sharing this episode with them. We'll be back next week, and in the meantime, many happy orgasms.